Well, hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant. And this channel, as you by now already know, is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, and things you definitely should not with regards to your Canadian immigration application. And today is Saturday, so we are back to our Saturday morning weekly roundup, Canadian immigration weekly roundup, where we talk about whatever has happened within the week or maybe earlier in some cases with regards to the Canadian immigration landscape, processes, updates, change, what is on the horizon, the trends, things which might concern us, things which might make us excited and happy. All of that combined into this one single episode that we will present to you today. As normal, what we will do is we will very quickly go through the short presentation which covers different aspects of today's session. And after that, we'll talk about a couple of points that we want to sort of bring to your notice, attention, discuss about things that could be of concern, some things that you should be aware of, wary about. And after that, we will open the floor for question and answers. And that's when I would be very happy to sort of take your questions as you post them and then, paddle through them and answer them for you. So hold your questions for the time being, because otherwise this feed gets totally clogged and a lot of questions get repeated, which basically means that some of the questions which might be important, we tend to lose them within that feed. So just hold your questions back until I finish my short presentation and the points I want to discuss. And once we open the floor for questions, you're most welcome to post them. I also would talk to you today about the TEER, TEER, the NOC 2021, the changes, when it's going to happen and what is going to be the impact, possibilities, a briefly discussion about Bill C-19 as well, because that is definitely of a concern. Not a concern, but something that we all want to understand how it's going to make a difference, how it's going to impact, and something that we can prepare for as well. And I'm going to also talk to you about criminal inadmissibilities and how you could be prepared, God forbid, if you have a situation which could make you an inadmissible person to Canada. So all of this combined in today's episode. And before we jump onto that, I have a small personal news to share. Your favorite host on this particular channel, I am basically now licensed to practice in front of IRB, which is the Immigration Refugee Board. So we now have a new regulator of immigration consultants, which is CICC, College of Immigration Consultants, College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. And under the new regulatory requirement, all immigration consultants can no longer represent clients in front of IRB, which is Immigration Refugee Board. So, and the reason for that is because in order to appear in front of IRB, you need to have a certain level of competence, you need to have a certain level of education, certain level of background, certain level of experience. And therefore, CICC went ahead and created an upgraded class of immigration practice license so that only qualified and competent immigration consultants would then be able to present their clients to IRB. And for this, you have to go through a training program and then a very, very difficult, at least I would think difficult, closed book examination. And thankfully, just a day before, I was informed that I have passed that exam, which basically makes me one of the first batch of immigration consultants in Canada who are now licensed to practice in front of IRB and present our clients there. So, hurrah! That was my short note on the personal achievement. So, thankfully, got that hurdle out of the way so that I can continue to give the best service possible for the community as well as our clients. Moving on, the short presentation that we have, starting with the quote of the week, as we usually do. When you know what you want and want it bad enough, you will find a way to get it. I mean, this is exactly what I would say when I was preparing for my examination as well. I wanted to get that license upgrade because at no point of time did I want to be told that I will not be able to help my clients anymore in a certain situation because I'm restricted by the licensing requirement. But I knew it, I wanted it, and I wanted it really bad so that I could give the best possible service that I usually say that I provide. And the only way to get to it would be to prod my head down and get on with it, do whatever was required, and then just the way as it says, you will find a way to get it. And I'm not sure how many of you actually are aware of Jim Rohn. He's a great motivational speaker. If you haven't really If you haven't really ever heard him speak, so basically hop onto YouTube. That is where you'll find a plenty of content about on Jim Rohn. Great motivational speaker. I so highly recommend him. If at all you ever need to sort of find that bit of a click in your life to move forward with, so definitely follow Jim Rohn. And as I said, this particular quote is so close to my heart. So this is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. As we move on, please do stay up to date on the immigration news and trends by following us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course, and then we also are there on TikTok. Today's topics of discussions, again, we'll go through the PNP overview. We have some short information on express entry. We'll go on with the other news and then get on to the question and answer. Starting with the PNP draws, Alberta announced the results of their draw on the 19th of May. As most of you by now already know, that they do not immediately announce their draws. It actually gets announced a week or 10 or few days sometimes later after that. So the results were announced only a couple of days back, but the draw was held on the 19th of May. And this time they have issued only 100 invitations, which is quite low as a number given what they would otherwise do. And the lowest score at this time was 382, which by contrast is higher for express entry draws. Alberta Opportunity Stream, which is their other stream for people inside Canada who have work experience in Canada, has got approximately 1,050 applications in queue. And just to give you a short update, that Alberta staff are now processing applications that were received before the February 20th, 2022, and this is for the AOS, Alberta Opportunity Stream. British Columbia, the usual suspect, on the 24th of May, they invited 137 candidates through the 5 different streams that they now have: the EEBC, the skilled worker stream, the international graduate stream, and then now also the targeted stream for the tech workers and healthcare workers and now childcare workers. Some of the draws that they conducted, especially for the healthcare workers and childcare workers, the lowest score was only 60 points. Well, so BC is really now prodding along. And as I said, they're the usual suspects. They're very frequent and very regular with their draws. So one of the best provinces to sort of get your PNPs, provided you can find an employer who will give you a job offer. With express entry, as usual, they conducted another express entry draw. This was again a program, or rather a provincial nominee specific, program specific draw. This was held on the 25th of May, and they invited 589 candidates, which obviously, as you know, is slightly lower than what they have been providing. And the minimum score for this particular draw was 741. Now, for people who sometimes do get confused or who are not familiar or who are just getting along into the, or are just entering into the express entry pool and get quite confused with what this PNP specific program draws are, well, express entry has only 3 programs, not 4. PNP is not a program in express entry, but it's a category. So they have, in express entry, you have federal skilled workers, you have federal skilled trade categories, and then you have Canadian experience class. Canadian experience class actually being right on the top in terms of the priority when it comes to the to the express entry system. PNPs are not a separate category within express entry. They're not managed separately. So even if you are a PNP, even if you are a provincial nominee who has received the 600 points and therefore you are eligible for this draw, you still have to be checked for eligibility, whether as a federal skilled worker or as a Canadian experience class or as a federal skilled trade category. So you still need to comply with the eligibility requirements of these 3 categories in order to sort of go through with your PNP program, even if you get invited. So for people who are new to this system, you could possibly enter an express entry pool by creating an express entry profile. And if you are then selected by a province, or you do apply to a province which has a program linked to express entry, you get the nomination, the province gives you 600 points, gets added to your CRS score, thereby then allowing you or making you eligible to apply, or rather be eligible for a PNP program specific draw that IRCC has been conducting over almost 2 years now, on and off, very regularly over the last year. So that's what you get the eligibility for, and this is what these draws are all about. Moving on. In the other news that we have, a new work permit pathway has been implemented for the Quebec skilled workers. Now, this this obviously was done because some of the Quebec permanent residence applications can take quite some time. So already earlier this year, IRCC had included Quebec workers, rather Quebec applicants who had applied for permanent residence. They have now been included to apply for bridge open work permit. Earlier, if you had applied for Quebec, you could not apply for bridge open work permit. That was already implemented earlier this year. However, moving forward, if you have received your CSQ, which is the Quebec Selection Certificate, and also a letter of invitation from Quebec authorities saying that you have received a certificate of a Quebec Selection Certificate and your application for permanent residence is in process, but you are not in Quebec and you may be in a different province, or you could be outside Quebec or outside Canada, even you could be in your home country. But obviously, they want you to come to Quebec quickly so that you can assist with the labor shortage that is, ongoing at this point of time. And therefore, you will now be also eligible to apply for an open work permit, which is great. So this is coming under the IMP Plus. I don't know why they keep with these, what's with these acronyms, but anyway, so they have this International Mobility Program Plus, and you will be able to apply for your work permit under this category. There's a number restriction there. 14,700 is the maximum applications they will accept this year. And if you are not one of those 14,700, then you will have to wait until next year when they will restart this number. And then for the next year's quota, you could be included, which would then be a reduced quota. But for this year, it is 14,700. And if you are one of those people who has received this letter of invitation from the province and also has a CSQ, Quebec Selection Certificate, then you should definitely be looking forward to applying for this particular work permit. Now, there is a hot question. If you come to the port of entry, you come to the border, and whether you are a permanent resident, whether you are a temporary resident, whether you are an international student, whether you are a worker, whether you're a visitor, the first question you get asked is the purpose of your visit. Okay, I'm not sure how many times a visa officer or a border officer in their life ask this question. And sometimes I think they will be dreaming about this as well. Purpose of his visit. So after they ask you for the purpose of visit, they can also ask you if you have a criminal record. Sometimes they can see in their system that you do, and they are waiting for you to confirm or to check, you can validate that information, or they may have an information that you might have certain questionable background. So if you are asked that question, that do you have a criminal record, or do you have anything that you would like to declare in terms about your background? And if you do think you have a criminal record, even if you are not sure about it, even if you are not sure if it is a criminal record or if it's a civil record, if it's something, if you get asked that question, you definitely have to answer that truthfully. By not answering truthfully, you will put yourself in a very, very serious spot. So make sure you answer that question truthfully. And if there is a criminal record there in your background somewhere, then it's not like you cannot enter Canada at all. There are ways and means by which you could sort of correct that, or at least temporarily come to Canada if you have to. But at that point of time, you have to answer truthfully, and given the circumstances, and if you're not prepared for it already, you may not be allowed to you may not be allowed to enter Canada at that point of time, and you may be asked to return back to whichever country you came from, or to any other country, but not Canada. So knowing that this situation can put you in a spot or you could be in trouble, it's always advisable to prepare in advance, to consult with a professional, to consult with a lawyer, to consult with a consultant who can guide you as to what you can do in the circumstances if you have a past criminal record. This includes DUI, driving under influence, or driving as impaired. So if you have a drunk driving charge, you have a driving under impairment charge, these are all very, very serious issues if you're coming to Canada and if it's on your record. So please be prepared. Please be aware that these things can become an issue. So in your case, if you have such a situation, make sure you are aware. That's the first thing. And number two, you have a plan on how you're going to tackle it. So one of the situations how you can. So for example, you have a family in Canada. You got to meet them, but you now have this unfortunate incident or situation where you now become criminally inadmissible to Canada. So one of the first things that you can do through a consultant, to a lawyer, yourself, of course, if you can do that research and figure the best way possible for yourself, is apply for TRP, which is called Temporary Resident Permit. Temporary Resident Permit is issued to people who are otherwise inadmissible to Canada, So that's your best remedy out if you want to visit Canada temporarily for a short period of time because you have compelling reasons to come to Canada. It has a very high bar for approval. So make sure you make a good case for yourself to explain why you need to come to Canada, despite the fact that you are criminally inadmissible. In the second, more permanent solution, there is something called criminal rehabilitation, which basically allows Canada to sort of allow you to come permanently so you don't have to apply TRP. In most cases, once your record is or the punishment that was given to you for that incident, the 5 years have passed, you could apply for criminal rehabilitation, again depending on the situation, depending on what that charge was, depending on what the incident was about. So you could apply for criminal rehabilitation by making an application to Canada, and if it is approved, then basically your charge is no longer a problem and you can go in and out of Canada without any issue. Of course, if you haven't done anything else apart from that. If 10 years have passed after having gone through the situation, you may be deemed rehabilitated. But it's always best to consult with a professional to understand whether this is something that would be considered as deemed rehabilitated or not. Hopefully you wouldn't have that situation, but it's always good to sort of discuss things about things like these, because amongst so many of you who watch these live as we do it, there could always be people who might have certain situations sometimes you might not even be aware about. So this is something which you should be mindful about, and you should take care about this. Right, this was the presentation that we had to talk to you about. Do connect with us on social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok as well. But yeah, don't like that very much, but gotta do what you gotta do, right, guys? While you're still here, do smash the like button so that this video can go to more audience, because that's how YouTube algorithm works. And also do hit the subscribe button so you can see more of my very entertaining and informative videos as and how we post them. Okay, let's get this out of the picture. All right. From here on, there are a couple of other things that I want to talk to you about. So we've already spoken about the criminal inadmissibilities. Well, another thing that all of you now by now already are aware is So there are two things. First of all, a lot of you who are quite concerned that there has been no news about the extension of postgraduate work permit. So as you know, a few weeks back, Minister Sean Fraser came out and made this announcement that the express entry draws will resume in early July. And he also said the people who are in Canada, the international students who have a postgraduate work permit, but those postgraduate work permits have expired or are expiring, they will be eligible or they will be allowed to extend their postgraduate work permits for up to another 18 months. That was the announcement made. However, nothing else followed from there on. And there are a lot of people whose work permits have expired or are expiring, and they're quite anxious as to what's going to happen. So from what we understand, based on another media statement, or rather another statement that Sean Fraser made during his meeting in the House of Commons with the Parliamentary Committee of Immigration and Citizenship Matters, he stated that they will be extending, or they will be making the announcement to extend the work permits for the postgraduate work permit holders in mid-June. So that is the news that you should be expecting. Mid-June is when the criteria would be available so that you will be able to apply for your extensions for postgraduate work permits. I know at this point of time, the people whose work permits expired after 27th of November until January, that segment or that period of time has not been covered in the announcements. But don't lose faith, don't lose hope. I'm just hoping and praying that those people will also be included in the group of people who will be eligible to apply for extension. But we have to wait for the final announcements to be made, which we are expecting by the first or the second week of June, because following that is when the whole program will come into effect and you will be able to apply for your extensions of postgraduate work permits. So that was the first news. Second was about express entry draws, and they are expected sorry for that. They are expected to be resumed early July, as per the statement made several times now by Minister of Immigration Sean Fraser. Now, if you are one of those people who is expecting an express entry invitation in the next few months, obviously there has also been this debate about whether you have to be a CEC or whether it's going to be FSW, again, from the horse's mouth, and the horse here being Sean Fraser, the immigration minister, he was quoted as saying that federal skilled worker and Canadian experience class, both programs would be included in the next upcoming draws that they are expecting to resume early July. So that is another relief for a lot of people who are unsure as to which programs would be considered. But as you know, and I know, these things are always subject to change. So until those happens, we won't know. But for the time being, at least keep your anxieties at bay so that we can put our minds and heads to better things that are at play here. But if you are expecting an express entry draw as an invitation, then obviously I'm hoping that you have already created your express entry profile. Your profile will remain valid for a few weeks or months. If it is already expiring or expired, then I hope you have recreated your express entry profile, because very, very important would be the tiebreakers. That would be a big factor in a lot of people being invited or being left out. So because how tiebreakers work in express entry, and I'm sure most of you already know that, is that the lowest score that is being invited, that is the score that gets affected. That's the first thing. So for example, the first express entry draw, let's say, is at 520. Okay, don't get upset with me on that one, but that's what we are expecting, right? The first express entry draw is going to be in the range of 500 upwards. So let's say the first express entry draw is at 520, and everybody whose score is 520 and above, so 521 and above, everybody who is in the express entry pool at the time that the draw is being conducted, they will receive an invitation. It's the people who are at 520 who will have to be concerned about the tiebreaker. So the tiebreaker basically would be that if IRCC has decided they want to invite only 2,000 people, so at the 2,000th number, whatever is the express entry score, that becomes the lowest score. So at that point of time, tiebreaker will apply, and certain people who would have created their profiles after the tiebreaker date, they will not be considered for that draw. So therefore, try and create your profiles at the earliest so that you don't get affected by the tiebreaker rule or tiebreaker law, whatever you want to call it, tiebreaker process. So that's the first thing. Also, make sure your IELTS is valid. If it's not valid, your profiles will expire. If they are going to expire, your IELTS are going to expire, then make sure you do another, or rather you go through another, you take another test so that you are ready with your new exam results, so that your profile again doesn't get affected. Also, if your ECA, Education Credential Assessment, if that is expiring or expired, then make sure you have a duplicate copy done so that you get an automatic extension or your ECA. From there on, be aware of the requirements of the program, because you're not very far away from early July anymore, right? It's just a matter of about 45 odd days or less, from actually less than that, 40 days probably, even less if you want to call it. And be aware of what the requirements would be from your documentation. If you do not know, let me very quickly create this so you can find out. So I have a blog post, and I'm going to post this for you here. askkubeir.com/post-ita. So if you are waiting for your express entry draws to happen, if you're waiting for the invitations to be received, and you're still trying to figure out what documentation you will need, this was a blog post I wrote quite a long time back. So some of it, I don't think it is outdated, because most of those documents are still relevant. But yes, by all means, go check out that link. That will give you the list of all the documents you will need in your application after you receive the invitation to apply. So make sure you have all these documents ready. Make sure you're prepared with all these documents. If some of these documents may take time, for example, your police clearances from certain countries, they can take a lot of time. Have them handy, have them ready, so that you don't face any problems when the time comes, and you do not get hampered by the delays that might occur in getting your documentation. So you can get this as a head start. You can start preparing for this, and then obviously anxiously wait for your draw to happen when it happens, and then you will be absolutely ready to submit your application pronto the minute you get your ITA. So this is one thing that you can do while you're waiting anxiously for the draws to resume. The most important topic for discussion for today is the tier system, TEER. What is TER? Let me just quickly write that down for you here. Training, education, experience, and responsibilities. I'm sorry if I got that spelling mistakes there because I'm typing very quickly. So that's what TEER system is. TEER, training, education, experience, and responsibilities. Now, this is the name that has been given to the new NOC, National Occupation Classification System for 2021. NOC basically gets revamped after every 10 years. So the last one was done in 2011. So what the NOC codes that you choose now, the NOC codes that you refer to now, are basically finalized in 2011, and they were then updated in 2016. So the NOC database that you use as of right now is from 2016, and now it will be implemented and upgraded to 2021. The new NOCs have already been prepared. They're already been finalized. The new NOC 2021 database is already available for you to check if you wish to check. It hasn't been implemented by IRCC as of yet. Okay, that's the only thing. But we have been contemplating, we have been discussing, we have been speculating as to when that will happen. And now we are aware, and now that we know that NOC 2021 or the tier system will be implemented by November 2022. And how do we know this? We know this because there was this internal memo that has again come out through ATIP notes. This has been shared by courtesy of Steven Murrens. He's an immigration lawyer, a great, fantastic guy, very active on Twitter, who also shares a lot of these datas and these gems and these pearls from the Canadian Immigration Archives. So if you're not following him, then I think you definitely should. So thanks to him, we have been able to get a copy of this internal memo, which discusses and talks about the tier system, TEER system, the NOC 2021 system, which will be implemented by November. It is expected that it will be implemented by November 2022. So that's something which you should be aware of. Now, earlier, when the initial announcements about this particular segment was made, there was a lot of concern because nobody knew how this system would be implemented. So very quickly, if I tell you what it is about, and obviously there is a lot of discussion about who would be included, not be included. And before I get into that, very quickly, yes. So this is what I would show you first. So how this would work is, in the current system, in the NOC 2016 system, there are 5 skill types. There are 5 levels of skill, which is NOC 0, A, B, C, or D. These are what are considered as the skill type. NOC 0, A, or B. These are the only 3 categories of these, or skill types of these NOC, which are considered eligible in express entry. So if your NOC is C or D, then you would not be eligible in express entry. Now the new tier system has taken over, or rather will take over. And in NOC 2021, you will have tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. So basically 1 extra. So there are 6 tier levels versus 5 first. So it is the NOC skill type B, which has now segmented into tier 2 and tier 3. So there was a lot of anxiety as to which NOCs might go into tier 3 and if tier 3 would be considered as eligible within the express entry or not. Well, then the good news is that tier 3 would indeed be considered under the express entry eligibility, and that is absolutely spectacular, as in because it sort of removes a lot of the concerns that people had with this particular program. And with this, and this is the first paragraph here. This is what you can look at. Let me just highlight this. There you go. At present, the programs managed under express entry are open to occupations that are categorized at skill level B or above. So B, A, 0. With the implementation of NOC 2021, the program's eligibility cutoff will become tier 3, which is amazing, which is incredible. So it basically removes all the anxiety and ambiguity and speculation that we've all been having over the last few months, trying to understand whether certain NOC codes which are in tier 3, which were now from NOC B have gone to tier 3, whether they will be included or not. I know there are a lot of you out there with NOC codes 1241 who were extremely concerned because they were falling into tier 3 and they were not sure if tier 3 would be included. So for you guys, it's a big relief because now you know that 1241 is not affected and all tier 3 NOC codes are actually going to be eligible for express entry. So that's a good news. Not only is it good news, it is further amplified in terms of good news by the fact that these 16 NOC codes Okay, these were earlier ineligible in express entry because they were not C. But because of this new NOC tier system, they are now eligible because they fall into tier level 3, tier 3. And the biggest category over here who is going to be absolutely excited with this change are these NOC codes. 7511 and 7512. These are your truck drivers or transport truck drivers, the bus drivers who were earlier ineligible because their NOC code were not, skill type C or D, and therefore they were not eligible. Now, transport truck drivers and the bus drivers are now will be under tier 3 and hence eligible. Not only that, you have payroll administrators, dental assistants 3411, nursing aides and associates 3413, pharmacy technical assistants 3414, elementary school teaching assistants. Okay, not the ECE, it's the assistants 4413, and then you have residential and commercial installers and servicers 7441. You also have other repairers and servicers 7445. And then the heavy equipment operators 7521 and 9521. These are all going to be eligible. They will all become eligible in express entry. All they need to do is get their education credentials sorted, and they have to get their IELTS sorted, and they could very well be part of the express entry pool and be eligible to apply. Now, some of you would be wondering, what are these categories of other repairers and servicers? Well, trust me, there are so many of those categories. If you would want to sort of see quickly, let me just see if I can quickly put this up so that we can also see what are we talking about in these specific NOC codes. Let me just see if I can pull this up here for a minute. Yeah, there you go. So see, for example, 7445 under other repairers and servicers, you have bicycle repairer, camera repairer, meter repairer, piano repairer, scale repairer, sewing machine repairer, sporting goods repairer, vending machine of repairers. All these categories of people, or rather of applicants who were earlier ineligible, they are now also eligible to apply under express entry. This is a huge list if you were to see. And all these individuals who were earlier not eligible in express entry would also now be eligible in express entry. In addition to that, there was another category that I found it very interesting, who were earlier ineligible now becomes eligible, and these are the residential and commercial installers and servicers. So window installers, electric appliance installers, your hot tub installers, irrigation technicians, swimming pool installers, the cladders, the commercial signs, the drapery installers, duct installers, electrician, fence builders, all these categories of people, mobile phone repairers, mobile phone maintainers, mobile phone servicers, all these categories of people will also become eligible in express entry, which basically means that not only will they become eligible in express entry, even if you, for example, now have a NOC code in which obviously you were eligible because you were in tier 3 or NOC B, but previously you had work experience in any of these categories, in any of these professions, in any of these occupations, and earlier you could not use that work experience because it was not eligible. Well, good news is that you would also now be able to use that work experience for additional points if you were looking to get them. So as I said, there is always some good news happening at some point of the time, in any corner as far as express entry is concerned. However, because there is good news, there also has to be bad news. So there are these 3 NOC codes who would be considered as ineligible because they no longer fall into tier 3. And unfortunately, the other performers, that is NOC 5232, I think. Then the program leaders and instructors and recreation, sports and fitness, NOC 5254, like your gym instructors, your certain coaches, those will all become ineligible. Tailors, dressmakers, furriers, and milliners, NOC 6342, they will also become ineligible because they no longer will be in tier 3. They would actually go to tier 4. So that's the unfortunate bit. Now, also there's a bit of a change with the Atlantic Immigration Program. This is for people who do follow Atlantic Immigration Program. Because of the shift of programs in tier 3 and tier 4, the eligibility cutoff for Atlantic Immigration Program will become tier 4. As of right now, it's at skill type C. Skill type D is not considered as eligible for Atlantic Immigration Program. So now with this tier 4 becoming the cutoff, everybody who's in tier 5 and 6, who will be in tier 5 will no longer be eligible. So the people who have been affected are pet groomers, other support occupations in personal services, longshore workers, material handlers, taxi drivers, chauffeurs, delivery service drivers, boat and cable ferry operators, nursery and greenhouse laborers, food and beverage servers, laborers in textile processing and cutting. These individuals will no longer be eligible in the Atlantic immigration program. So that was a bit of a change. And if you really want to see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up this document for you through a Google Drive. I'm going to put the link in the description. So after we are done with the video, you'll be able to access this document yourself. This is the project milestone and deliverable for this particular program. Let me make the screen bigger so you can see it. As you can see here, November 2022 is the time period that NOC 2021 is going to be in use at IRCC. The amendments to the ministerial instructions, the Immigration Refugee Protection Regulations would have been made by this particular date. So November 2022 is when they are targeting to bring this into implementation. So that's what you can expect. As I said, I will put this document as a share for you guys. You will be able to access it and you will be able to read through this in detail at your own free time. So that is the document, which also gives you the complete timeline. So this was basically it. You can start pouring in your questions if that's what you wanted to do. And let me just close this and remove this. And yeah, so that's the tier system coming into effect from November 2022. Good news for 16 occupations who will now become eligible, and not so good for 3 occupations who are not. And biggest, as I said, biggest impact is going to be for truck drivers and transport truck drivers and the bus drivers who are currently in Canada, who have been working, because I think transport truck driving has one of the largest shortages in terms of manpower in Canada. And by the way, if you were wondering, it is also an extremely highly paid occupation for people who do practice this or who are in this profession. They will tell you that. And but because of this big vacancy that is there in this particular occupation, there are a lot of people who are actually working but did not have a pathway because nothing was happening in Express Entry. Now they have this pathway. Express Entry will be open for them. And keep in mind, at this point of time, let's talk about Bill C-19 now. So now we've discussed about this tier system. We've discussed about all these things. Is this connected to Bill C-19? No, at this point of time, it is not connected to Bill C-19. Bill C-19, which is going to be the category-based CRS score draws or CRS draws, is different than this NOC system. So those two are not connected. Okay. This new NOC system, as I said, is something which which ESDC Stats Canada will do every 10 years anyways. So this was being done anyways. The NOC-based CRS, the NOC-based Express Entry draws is something which has been proposed over the last 2 years only. So it's got nothing to do with the NOC. NOC changes would have happened anyways. But how will they combine together? So Bill C-19, I do not expect it to be implemented this year. At this point of time, it is still being deliberated in the parliament. I think they still have to go through the second reading. It is being discussed at the parliamentary meeting levels, and then there'll be the final reading, and then there has to be the voting. All the parliament has to vote. It has to be approved in the both houses of the Senate. It has to be given a royal assent. It has to then become the law and the change in the law and then be implemented. So it would take prospectively some time. My expectation is, and then obviously IRCC has to make this announcement that this is what they're going to do as well, right? So I expect this to be implemented only by early next year. That is what I expect, but IRCC, they can do anything. Again, my expectation based on what I've just told you. And with the new NOC system that we have, the tier system, all they will be able to do is probably define certain occupations in a different manner when they want to make that choice of occupation-based draw. So when they will make these categories could be based on the language you speak. So for example, if you're a Francophone, they could do a specific draw for French speakers who are preparing whose choice of destination, for example, is Yukon, and who are accountants. So for example, if they know in the province of Yukon, they need accountants and preferably French speakers, then they could actually conduct a draw from the Express Entry, in the Express Entry, of French speakers who are destined or wanting to go to Yukon and whose NOC codes are 1111, for example. purely examples, okay? And that is how a draw could be conducted. This could be a very, very specific draw, or they could just have people who are French speakers, they will be given, or people who are only accountants, they will be issued a draw. People who are accountants with a 3-year experience, people who are accountants with a 6-year experience, that would also become an important factor. But we have to wait and see how these categories will be played out. It will be very interesting to see how IRCC chooses to use this new tool or this new authority that they will be given. But fingers crossed, I hope it works out for everybody, all concerned. There will always be people who will be left behind, but there will always be people who otherwise had no chance would now be able to take advantage of it. So it tends to bring a bit of a balance in the whole system as such, and therefore I think it's going to work just fine. Right. That was all that I had to talk to you about. I did speak to you about for a very long time today, I mean, instead of a very short presentation. And we basically covered with our presentation, we've done the points I want to talk to you about. So open for questions. And if you guys are still here, and so many of you are still here, smash the like button. I want to get this video across to more and more people. And also, if you still haven't subscribed to our channel, I just do not know what you're waiting for. I mean, like, do you really have any other channel to subscribe to when you have this one, for your Canadian immigration dose? Not really. So smash that and let's get going. Okay. All right. What is the role? First question here. Thabi Ahmed says, what is the role of secondary visa office mentioned on the GCMS notes? Stuck with Montreal primary visa office, 6 months crossed since spouse added, but yet to receive her biometric instruction letter. Well, based on the case, based on the workload, or based on handling of certain aspects of your application or the certain activities of your application may be moved to a different visa office where certain resources who have the expertise in managing or doing what you are required to be done in your application may be available, and therefore that becomes your secondary visa office. It happens quite frequently, actually. Certain parts of your application could be handled in the primary office, certain get allocated or designated, or if you want to call it delegated, to a different visa office that becomes your secondary visa office, and they will in conjunction process your application collectively. So that's what you would mean by that. NOC code 4412, any possibility to get a job in Canada? Try to apply in one consultant agency. Well, applying with only one consultant agency is not going to help. Any kind of a job that you're looking for, any occupational assistance that you're looking for, what you need to do is you need to get very, very active on your job front or the job search front. One agency is not going to help you. Try and reach out to as many agencies as possible. Try and reach out to as many employers as possible. Try to register your resume, of course, on the Job Bank of Canada as well, and try to get to the Job Bank of Canada and also apply to the employers who are looking for would have an open vacancy in the occupation you're looking for. Connect with the employers through the LinkedIn or other social media platforms. Connect with the employers if you know the employers who are actively hiring. Connect with them directly through their website. Approach the hiring managers through the LinkedIn platform or similar platform if you are aware of, or you might, for example, be in a different occupation which might have an association or a platform for only those people who are practicing their occupation. Approach individuals, people who are in the position of hiring in those platforms as well. And collectively, you might have a favorable response. That would be probably how you would go about doing, or rather looking for a job if you had to. Can I apply for dependent PR once my lands in Canada before he receives his physical PR card based on his COPR letter? Okay, so what you're asking me is if your spouse, who's the primary applicant and had probably filed his application as non-accompanying spouse, lands in Canada, has his COPR activated but did not receive his PR card, can this individual apply for the spouse who's outside Canada for PR? Yes, absolutely you can. There is no problem with it. Having a PR card is not a mandatory requirement for you to be able to file your spousal sponsorship PR application. If you have it, it's great. It always works. It's always nice to have because it's a good document to sort of establish your permanent resident status and your identity as well. But if you don't have it, then your COPR will work just fine. There is no problem with it. When will they release the public policy for postgraduate work permit extension for this year? It will be released, from what I understand, by the mid-June. And I expect that the announcements for the criteria and the announcements for the other program details should be announced by early June, probably first or second week of June as well. Do you have any idea why are you so dedicated in your profession, especially collecting genuine information from Canada? Thank you so much. Well, some time back when I was not in this profession, I found there was a huge gap because I was doing it for myself. I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was trying to research for my own permanent residence application. I found there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of gap in the information that was available. So while I was researching for my information that I was looking for, I realized a lot of other people were doing the same thing. And I started sharing that information with them. And then from there on, that was just a spark, if I would call it. I do not know. I suddenly became very, very passionate and interested in the subject, in the subject of Canadian immigration. And once something bites you, or it's like an addiction for me. I mean, I breathe, eat, drink, sleep, and wake up to Canadian immigration processes, right? So if ever you were to come into my office and look at my screen, you would be like, it's only got different platforms of Canadian immigration processes from different channels, different releases, media releases, etc. So that helps me sort of keep myself updated so that I can give better information, for example, to my clients, or even, for example, to the community. So our Facebook groups, platforms, YouTube, of course, that it just helps me. If I am informed, I'm in a better position to give you that information. If I am not informed, then either I will be giving you wrong information or I will not be giving you information at all. So that basically makes my whole purpose of being here, irrelevant, right? But I enjoy it, and that's the best thing, right? Because if I enjoy it, then I love it, and if I love it, I can do this so much more better. But thank you for that comment. What would be the expected timeline who received AOR in Feb 2022? Great work. Thank you for your suggestions. Well, the expectation would be between 6 to 8 months at this point of time, considering also the fact that they're trying to get back to the standard timelines. And Sean Fraser again has repeatedly said that by this calendar year, by the end of this calendar year, they would have achieved the standard processing times for most lines of the business that they do. So yeah, again, I think 6 to 8 months at this point of time is something which you can expect from now on. Does a genuine gap between 12th and graduation cause a negative impact when we apply for masters in university? Well, a lot of universities and colleges do require you to have no longer than a specific period of gap. And if you do have a gap, and if you are able to explain in your letter of explanation, in your gap certificate, or in your gap document, if you want to call that, then the college or the university may accept your application, but it becomes highly discretionary. You should be able to justify the reason of your gap. And if you're able to do that, then you would find that that would work for you. No problem with that. My wife is already in Canada on a study permit and wants to call me on a spousal visa or an open work permit. I wanted to know whether you can process or how to contact you. Well, absolutely, we process those. We process those in large numbers, actually. You're most welcome to drop an email to that email address. My team will guide you further as to what we charge and how we can process your application. But yes, you're most welcome. You see, again, without me trying to sort of hijack this as my services that I'm offering, let me just give you what you can do with it yourself. You don't have to take my services. You don't have to take any consultant services for this. It's quite a straightforward application. There are a few things that you need to provide and you need to establish in a spousal sponsorship, spousal open work permit application. The most important is the eligibility of your spouse who's in Canada. So if your spouse is in Canada as a student, if your spouse is in Canada as a worker, these are the two main categories. For a student, it's under the exemption code C42. For international workers who are in Canada, it's under exemption code C41. You can Google these C41s and C42s exemption codes. You will be able to see the eligibility criteria on the Canadian IRCC website. Now, for an international student, you have to be a student in good standing. What that basically means is that you are attending your college, you're attending your program, you're not failing your program or courses, and you are a person in good standing. That is the first criteria for you to be able to sponsor or rather bring your spouse on an open work permit. Second criteria is that your relationship is genuine. Okay, then this was not a relationship that was entered for the purpose of bringing the spouse outside Canada to Canada. And getting them an entry into Canada. So your relationship has to be genuine, and you will need to prove that. Third is that you have the required amount of finances to be able to sustain your lifestyle, sustain your living expenses in Canada. These are the three main important factors when you're applying for spouse open work permit as an international student. Similarly, for international workers who are in Canada, you can apply. You will be eligible to apply for a spouse open work permit under section C41 for the exemption. If your occupation is under NOC 0A and B, and if you are being paid for the job. So for example, you're a postgraduate work permit holder and you have received your work permit, you are working. You have to provide a letter of employment which lists down your duties and responsibilities so that the visa officer can ascertain whether you are NOC 0, A or B. So it's very, very important. A lot of people mess their applications because they do not provide a letter which lists their duties and responsibilities, or they provide a letter which lists the duties and responsibilities, but it reflects NOC C or D and not NOC 0, A or B, which are eligible to bring your spouse in an open work permit. Obviously, you will also need to provide the pay slips or pay stubs, because that is the basis of the fact that this is a paid employment. If you have established that, then obviously provide finances and funds to show that your spouse can obviously manage themselves. And again, proof of genuine relationship. And you would realize in most cases that not, if you have provided most of these documents and an explanation, a standard letter to show why your spouse would become successful or rather would find gainful employment once they come to Canada, you would realize that you would find that application would be processed positively. And that you will be on your way to Canada pretty soon. So I hope that helps you. Most professions require license to work in Canada. So does profession like dentists and doctors would be included in the NOC specific draw, since Canada is lacking in the healthcare sector? Again, that calls for speculation, which I don't know at this point of time. While there will be so many factors that will define how IRCC identifies categories, I also expect IRCC to regularly conduct no program or no category specified draw. So at this point of time, for example, they have been conducting CEC specific draw or provincial nominee program specific draw. Now they will be conducting an all program draw, fingers crossed. In future, I expect them that while they will be conducting category based draw, they would also occasionally be conducting an all program draw or no category identified draw, which basically would include everybody who were earlier in the categories or not. So that definitely is also a good possibility. So don't get disheartened by thinking that if you're a dentist, if you're a lawyer, you might not be included, or if you're a doctor, you might not be included. Well, at least you have the basic qualification, right? So you have the professional degree as has been ascertained or as has been evaluated or assessed by the VES or IQAS or CES, whichever. And that already gives you the first step into the occupation, okay? As it is, most of the provinces are also heading towards acknowledging and giving the equivalency to the foreign credentials, so that those people, those individuals can come to Canada and very quickly start working in those occupations which are considered to be very, very high in demand. I mean, without any debate or without any doubt, healthcare is one of the occupations which is direly in need for experts and qualified individuals. So I don't see why that category should be left out or would be left out. But at the end of the day, obviously, it also makes sense that if the regulatory body for that occupation has a series of restrictions which would not allow you to practice for a very long period of time, then there can always be that question. But as I said, Canada is basically moving towards making it easier for foreign credentials to be assessed and evaluated in a manner so that those individuals can come to Canada and get on to working very quickly. Based on that, it is quite possible that different categories might also include, these doctors, lawyers, dentists, etc. as well. And if not, God forbid, if not, then in my expectation, there can always be those no category specified draw, which would then again include all occupations regardless. Is it possible if I can get visitor's visa and travel alongside my husband, I'm not sure what you mean by hot PR or not PR. So I'm not able to figure that out. How can I show my ties as I'm currently not working or studying, and also I don't have property of my own? Khadija, the good idea would be to watch one of my videos, which I've done before, as to how to avoid visit visa refusals or temporary residence visa refusals, where I talk in detail what you can show in terms of your ties to home country. That would give you more information. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Do you see trend where people are getting PPR for PR? I see people who have work permit and PR both files submitted and getting PR and not work permit. Is this really happening? If so, insight. Well, the thing is, yeah, it happens, right? Sometimes your work permit application is still not processed, but your PR application gets processed. And if your PR application is approved and already processed, there is absolutely no reason for them to issue your work permit, because as a permanent resident, you no longer need a work permit. So this is absolutely a possibility. This quote is exactly sharing my condition that I'm going through at this moment. Well, thank you. I'm sure you're referring to the quote we did at the starting of the presentation. Congratulations on your L3. I did follow your updates on NCIC. Any other insights about Express Entry apart from EE and CEC draws resuming from July 2022? Well, the updates about Express Entry are that it's a very, very exciting year ahead. And when I'm saying exciting, I mean it in the sense of so many changes that we are looking forward to, whether it's the Bill C-19, whether it's the new tier system, whether it's the resumption of the draws and how the draws will play out, whether it's the extensions for postgraduate work permit holders. There is so much to look forward to. So yeah, I mean, with all these things, as and when they happen, trust me, I will be always there to bring that to you. This does not add up make sense. If IRCC is clearing backlogs and wants processing times back to normal, how are backlogs increasing? Just does not add up at all. Well, probably you are not looking at it from as the entire picture. When people talk about permanent resident applications, they are only thinking Express Entry. Express Entry is a very, very small component of the backlogs for the Express Entry or for the PR applications. There are sponsorship applications, there are protected persons applications, there are humanitarian and compassionate applications, there are refugee PR applications. There are also those family parents, grandparents applications. There are all these PR applications are also being processed, and they are a huge component of the PR application backlog. So when you say the backlogs are increasing, the backlogs are not increasing for Express Entry because the number of profile or rather the number of invitations is quite low because only PNP program specific draws were happening. So as far as IRCC is concerned, the reason for holding or the reason for not conducting the Express Entry draws was strictly because of the fact that they wanted to clear the backlogs. They knew they could not keep up with the backlogs as far as Express Entry is concerned if they continued with the draws. So they had to make the decision, which they did. At this point of time, now I think it might be a good decision to have made because that was the only way that they are now clearing the backlogs in Express Entry. If you have been watching my previous videos and the data as we bring it, you would be seeing the gradual reduction in the backlogs in Express Entry. So those applications are being cleared and they will continue to be cleared. So if Sean Fraser is making that statement that they intend to bring the processing times for most business lines within the standard times, so I think they would have a plan for it, and I think they might actually be able to get to most of it by the end of this year. So that's quite a fair comment. My spouse is living in Canada between SOWP and SDS. Which one is good? Well, first of all, there is no comparison. Okay, so spouse open work permit and student direct stream for a study permit are totally different. It all depends. For student direct stream, you will need to spend a lot of money. You will need to get admission into a college, pay $18,000-$20,000 a year admission fee, pay the GIC, I don't know, spend money in whatever manners, for example, your medicals, your IELTS, etc., as well. And for spouse open work permit, the fact that your spouse is already in Canada, it's a genuine marital relationship. You can provide proof of that. You can provide proof of funds. That is more than enough for your application to be processed. At this point of time, yes, we understand SDS may be processed faster than the spouse open work permit, primarily because of the backlog. SDS might take 3 months at this point of time, depending on where you're applying from. Spouse open work permit at this point of time could take more than 8 months. So that could be the reason why you might want to go the SDS route. However, when you are applying for your study permit application, you still need to prove your reason for studying, the benefit you will gain out of a Canadian education, how does it affect or impact your occupation, career, life in general in future, what are your ties to home country. And so the bar or the assessment bar or the criteria bar for a student would always be higher than spouse open work permit, because the requirement or the criteria to be established and proven in a spouse open work permit is quite low versus a study permit application. So you see, make that choice. Okay. Okay, nice presentation. Thank you. I'm glad you found that of value. My spouse is the main applicant. Can I show our joint bank account as proof of income? Yes, of course you can. Again, depends on what application type we are talking about. Namrata says, when applying for a work permit as outlander, proof of funds are mandatory to show. Well, if you're applying for a work permit as an outlander, now what work permit are you applying for? If you're applying for a spouse open work permit, you most definitely have to show proof of funds. Spouse open work permit means you do not have any job waiting for you. You do not have an employment offer, which basically means you still need to be able to show that you can sustain yourself, your living expenses when you're in Canada and not rely on something Canadian benefits or anything, which would not be acceptable. So yes, you definitely have to show proof of funds if you are applying for an open work permit versus a closed work permit. In closed work permit, the attention on proof of funds is not there as such per se, but I would still, in my application, still recommend to show at least something that you can meet 3 to 4 months of expenses at least, because there could be an initiationizing period, or initiation period, or a training period, or a temporary period, whatever that might be there in that employment. Look at the employment document and see if it's there. So while the stress on proof of funds will not be very high for a closed work permit, it definitely is there for an open work permit, but you will have to make the judgment call. In my opinion, if it's a proof of fund that you're looking for, try and provide it anyways, no matter what it is. Is it okay if some salary slips are missing with regards to express entry, though I have first and last, including few, but some are missing? It should be fine as long as you are paid. And if you are paid through a bank statement or through a bank transfer, then you can always alternatively provide a bank statement. And income tax returns, if you have them, should also provide very well. Does BC Tech require previous education and relevant work experience? Absolutely it does, because how else would you establish that you can actually perform the job? On the basis on which you receive the job offer, basis on which you will be eligible for the BC Tech. Can I apply for spouse's visitor visa while being in home country? Thank you for your answer in the last live video about childhood in Canada. I'm not sure what we are referring to here. Can I apply for spouse's visitor visa while being in home country? So first of all, what is your status? Is your status a permanent resident? Is your status a visitor? Yourself are a temporary resident? In both the situations, you have to first establish what yourself is your relationship with Canada, and under what basis can you invite somebody else while you yourself are not in Canada. Okay. Once you establish that, you will be able to answer your question yourself. Can I please ask you something related to Canada? Well, that's what everybody is doing. By all means, do ask us anything about Canada. If I can answer for you, I will most definitely do that. My son has a dual citizenship. The main travel document for our PR application is still valid, but the US passport recently expired. Any implications? Well, depending on what was the main document under which you applied for the PR application, it should not have any consequence as such. But do make sure you provide them with a copy of your US passport with the explanation that you have applied for extension. As and when you get it, you will provide it to them as well. But make sure you do provide it and let them know about it. Is the express entry based on knock taking place in November as well? Will we, that's what I explained, that I do not see any connection between these two at this point of time. However, in future, whenever the knock based draws, if and when they happen, they would obviously consider the new tier system automatically, because that will be the knock to sort of go to. Gaurav says, I have already retrieved the GCMS notes in which it is mentioned security check is pending, but in 2022 express entry quota is 55,900. So can we expect PPR in July, August? If your application is already submitted, okay, so you don't have to worry about the quotas or not having quotas or what they will do with the quota. That is least of your concern. Your application is already in progress. So all you need to be concentrating on is making sure that if there is a document request, you provide it to them. And as and when your application gets processed, you will be able to come to Canada. My wife is the main applicant. Can we show joint account as proof? We just did this question, didn't we? I first pick a certain knock code for my EE profile that I found that I match better with another knock code. Can I update in my EE profile? Is that okay? It's absolutely fine. You can update whatever you want in your express entry profile. There is no issues with that at all. If PCC is done from India while I'm in Canada from last month, will it be acceptable, or PCC from Canada will only be accepted? Well, the good thing with police clearances is that, it's not a good thing. I mean, it's just the thing. So for police clearances, please keep in mind that if you are applying for a police clearance, which is not your country of residence. So in this case, you're living in Canada means Canada is your country of residence. India is not your country of residence. You must apply for the PCC from outside that country. So the Indian PCC should be applied from outside that country. It should cover the entire duration of your residence, of your stay in that country, which can only be done once you're outside that country, right? Because it also has to incorporate the last day you were in that country. So therefore, apply for the police clearance from outside that country, and the police clearance can be considered, may be considered as valid until you return back to that country, because nothing has changed from the time that you left the country and you returned back. So that police clearance can be considered valid, and you can make a small note when you provide the police clearance to IRCC stating that you did not return back to the country, it was applied while you were outside, and hence it should be considered as valid. So therefore, as a rule of thumb, if you're applying for police clearances and if you're taking note of police clearances, well then, if it's not your country of residence, apply from outside that country and you can use it. It doesn't matter then, for as long as you stay outside. Do you think 490 with knock 1311 stand a chance with FSW before any anticipated changes are made? Well, Twinkle, I would recommend strongly that you watch my another video that I've done with the express entry draws, anticipation, trends, etc. We have discussed in detail what is expected or anticipated to happen as far as express entry draws are concerned. But yes, 490 is a good score. It all highly depends on how many invitations are issued in each draw for it to sort of say, okay, is this score good enough or is that score good enough? CEC candidate with PNP nomination, do I have to show proof of funds? No, you don't have to show proof of funds, because even if you have a nomination, you still need to be eligible under one of the express entry programs, which is EC, Federal Skilled Worker, Federal Skilled Trade category. If you are eligible as a CEC, which basically means you do not need to show proof of funds. If I got positive LMIA for 6211, my open work permit is expiring in Jan 2023. Meanwhile, I am an open work permit. Can I work second job as part-time? If you are on an open work permit, you can work any number of jobs that you wish to. There is no problem. FS draw prediction is 500 plus when the first draw happens. There is no problem with that. Is it okay if some salary? Oh, we just did this, right? So, okay, let's scroll down to the end of the question so we can see. As I said, the questions start repeating. Preeti Chayal, thank you for the super chat. Knock 5 to 5-4, CRS 475. I was expecting ITA in November, but now it's very certain. Will I have any luck in Federal Skilled Worker? What is the best course of action? The best course of action is try and improve your CRS score if you can, if it's possibility. Consider French as a second language if you can. That is also a possibility. Apart from that, as and when the Federal Skilled Worker, or rather, as and when the express entry draws will resume, only then can we speculate what kind of scores, because it will be dependent entirely on whether IRCC chooses to conduct program-specific draws or how many invitations do they issue in each draw. And that would define how quickly the scores will go down or up at any point of time. Do you know why Ontario processing times are taking so long? I received an ITA from Ontario in March. Program streams is been more than 70 days. Well, actually, the average processing times can go up to 90 to 100 days as well, especially if the master's graduate. That's number one. Number two, Ontario is lining up for the next elections, 2nd of June, for 5 days from now. And because of the elections, a lot of the staff are being used in different areas, which they might not have been otherwise. So one of the reasons that is possible because of all the delays that are happening in Ontario's PNP right now are possibly because of the upcoming election, which is on the 2nd of June. So quite a big possibility there. Any idea why Saskatchewan province taking long in clearing the backlog for PR files? Well, they have always taken long. I mean, their application processing can, on an average, take anywhere between 6 months to 1.5 years. So that's Saskatchewan for you. That's how long they take anyways under normal circumstances. I have a CSQ and waiting for an invitation from my file to benefit from open work permit. Can I study with this open work permit? And I'm planning to get married after that. Can I bring my wife after getting PR? No, you cannot study with an open work permit. Open work permit is only to work in Canada. Once you come to Canada on an open work permit and you do find a job which is in the NOC 0A or B, you will then also be eligible to apply for your spouse. That would be the condition. But yes, you can work with an open work permit. You cannot study with an open work permit. Thank you, Kubeir. It's a big deal if I change some dates after residing an address or the dates adhering to a syndicate in the 5669 from what I said earlier in the application. I'm not sure. Okay. No, you can change dates. It's not a problem. I mean, unless you are not making some very drastic and a big change. For example, if you said you were living in an address and the change is only for a few days or weeks, it's fine. But suddenly now you're saying you are changing dates for maybe more than 6 months, 1 year, probably in a different city, different country. That could be a concern, because that could also impact and affect the requirements of your police clearance to start with. So please make sure that you do, but definitely provide all the information truthfully and correctly in your 5669. That is extremely, extremely important, or rather, that is the most important thing. Ivan says, I got my PR, but IRCC made a mistake on my name that has been printed on the COPR and visa. Kindly tell me how to rectify the same. Well, that's pretty odd. Okay, first of all, check your name. I mean, is it the characters in the end of your name which have been missed out? Because the field on the name section of the COPR has a character limit. So if you have a long name, which could be, I think 18 characters or 24 characters, I don't remember exactly how many, but if your name has characters which exceeds the field limit for COPR name section, then obviously you will see that a lot of your characters of your name may be missed out. If that is the correction, then don't worry about it. But if the correction is that they've actually got your name wrong, which I'm quite surprised that they do that, then you will have to raise a web form. You will have to ask IRCC to correct that before you travel, because that is a material error, and you might have an error. You might have a problem at the port of entry. You might have a problem at the departure point as well. So definitely get that corrected. Why consultant always take LMIA in a shady area? I mean, closed work permits. Is there anything happening which people in India want to know and not get access to? I am sorry, but I don't understand that question. I'm not sure what do you mean by consultant take LMIA in the shady area. Maybe if you rephrase the question, I'll be happy to answer that for you. Is it allowed to enter the pool without scoring IELTS and enter approximate score? Once we get ITA, we can give IELTS. Well, that would not be the right thing to do, because that basically means you're trying to game the system. You're trying to misuse and abuse the system, in which case, under the express entries audit, if it does happen, then they might actually render your profile as ineligible, because when you do complete your express entry profile, you are required to answer everything truthfully, which basically means including the express entry report number and the dates you have appeared for the exam and you received the results. So the fact that you're giving wrong results and wrong dates, etc., means you are gaming the system and lying to the system, which basically is not a good thing to do. So don't do those kind of things. Me and my sis are only siblings and have 481, no ITA. When I or my sis get the PR, how long can we wait to expect to sponsor our parents who are old and will be living alone if we leave? Well, if you are applying for their super visa, which is a temporary residence visa, once you have secured a job and have an annual income based on your family size, which allows or makes you eligible to apply for super visa for your parents, you would be able to do that. It could take a few months, because applying very quickly will not help, because IRCC cannot establish if your job is permanent and if you actually have the annual income under which you're claiming those eligibility criteria. As far as the parents, grandparents sponsorship PR application is concerned, for that you should wait for 3 years of eligible income in order to be eligible to apply for PR, or rather to enter into the lottery for the PR for parents and grandparents. Okay, very quickly answering last few questions before I head out. Minor daughter's TRV process from India. She will be traveling to US for 3 months. Can stamping be done in US in case her TRV gets approved while she's there? Do we need to inform IRCC through web form before? If it's a temporary residence visa, you can get it stamped in any visa office, Canadian visa office in the world. There is no problem at all. I got it done for myself, and that was in quite a few years back. And I did not take anybody's permission. I did not inform anybody. I was in a different country when my Canadian visit visa at that point of time got approved. I just sent it to the nearest visa office in that country without asking anybody, and it was actually stamped and sent back to me. So there was no problem. I'm talking to you out of experience. So yeah, absolutely, there is no problem. Also, I think it is on some page of IRCC's website. You'll have to probably look for it, and where they say very clearly that if it's a temporary residence visa, you can send it to any visa post, Canadian visa post. There is no problem at all. Lovepreet Brar says, what is your professional fees for express entry? Good question. We can always do this one as well. www.askkubeir.com. We are very transparent. We don't hide or by all means, check this link, askkubeir.com/r-immigration-services. As you will be able to find the services page on our website, and you'll be able to see all the different services that we offer and what we charge as a professional fee for all our services. So you can always find that information there for all different application types. Do French-speaking candidates have much or less chance for express entry? Well, French-speaking candidates have great opportunity and excellent chance in express entry within the express entry system. Being a French speaker, and also if you're also bilingual, then you have the opportunity of getting great additional points, up to 60, I think, 60 or 65. I'm not sure exactly how many, but almost 60 points you can get additional if you are bilingual. Not only that, you also have opportunities with provinces like Ontario, who invite only French speakers, and that is a great one. And I also think with this categories that will happen in the express entry and the upcoming changes, again, Francophones may get a lot of advantage there as well. So overall, excellent opportunities for Francophones. And if you're an individual who doesn't speak French, this is also an opportunity for you to add French as a second language so that you can improve your chances into coming into Canada. Okay, this will take last couple of questions before I scoot off. If someone is on a closed work permit in Canada, can they, we just did this one, right? Do I need a police clearance from Canada for EE if I spent over more than 6 in Canada as a student in the past 10 years? You do not need a police clearance from Canada for any immigration application unless IRCC specifically asks for it. So unless IRCC is specifically asking for that police clearance from RCMP from Canada, you don't need to provide Canadian police clearance upfront in your application at all. Congratulations, AOR, Jan 2020, new medical passed in 2021, criminality expired. Is advised to upload upfront PCC. First of all, thank you. It is wise to obtain a PCC and hold that. And you should only upload it when IRCC asks for it, because they will open a placeholder in the application which will be able to link. But if you've already obtained it and you can't wait, then by all means use the web form and provide it to IRCC. They would still probably ask you for it. At that point of time, you will have to provide it again, and so that they can link it to your application. So it's a pretty much of a judgment call. It's not going to make much of a difference either which ways. Okay, last question. My TR to PR is in final evaluation. Now I need to convert my non-accompanying son into accompanying. His medical police clearance is already submitted. Police clearance for your son. Okay. Will it delay my application, and by how much? Well, first of all, if your son is not an adult, if your son is not over the age of 18, you did not need a police clearance. If your son is over the age of 18, then definitely you needed a police clearance, and I'm sure you already provided. Will it delay my application? Well, delay is something which is it's unavoidable when you make changes to your application, because now they will have to start assessing other factors which are crucial for their application. And when they have to assess other factors in your application, they obviously, without a doubt, will add certain process times. Depending on which visa office, depending on where it is being handled, depending on what is the processing queue of the individual assessing officer, your application could take some time to get back to the processing queue and come back for review. So yes, without a doubt, expect some time that might be added to your processing time. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your joining in today for this session again. If you haven't still followed us, or if you're not following us on Instagram, please do. We do make a lot of noise there as well. And absolutely don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's so important to see these numbers going up, because one, it's a motivational boost. So I can see, okay, numbers going up means more people watching, means I want to do this more and more and more again. So it's always nice to see that happening. And more importantly, it also helps getting the word out, getting the word across to different people who might otherwise not be aware of what would be the right thing to do in certain situations, which, as you know, we have already been discussing today. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining in. I would do this again next time. And until such time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you again.